warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Transport and Climate Change Week 2021. From wherever you're dialing in and joining us today, a warm welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to have you on board on this day and of course ahead of this very interesting week. It's the 4th edition of the Transport and Climate Change Week, organized by the GIZ on behalf of the Federal Ministry of the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety in Germany. So a warm welcome also to everybody involved, to all the organizers. We are streaming live, not only here in Berlin, but also, of course, it is an event worldwide to be watched. My name is Katie Gallas. I'm a geographer, and I'm very pleased to be your host of the upcoming hours and, of course, of the days. We would love to see you in person, ladies and gentlemen, from Central Asia, from Africa, from India, from Latin America, from North and Central America, from all over the world, and of course from Europe. But we do live in these times of a pandemic, so we decided to go virtual and to head into a virtual conference and a virtual event. Nevertheless, it's a virtual gathering. And gathering means, of course, a networking. So please be invited and please be engaged to network in the digital tools. We do have a platform. As you're already watching us live from this platform, there is a possibility to actually be engaged in the chat. So whenever you have a question, if it's a technical question or a content question, please be invited to actually post your questions into the chat. And of course, a matchmaking area is also available for you online. So that's the place where to gather and where to find like-minded souls, of course, where you can discuss and meet new people. Set your tags of interested topics, and then it's going to be a matching point, and then you are free and open to discuss and debate further, of course. In case you have technical issues, no problem at all. We got you covered. Please use the Q&A session also with the technical chat, and of course, as it's also including in the platform a virtual fair. This is the place for you, ladies and gentlemen, where you can get information of the participating organizations, to reach out to them directly, to exchange your business ideas, your business cards, and of course your networking details to discuss further. I would say, let's get started. And of course, I would love to read from you in the social media channels. We get you covered in LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So please be engaged. We all love to hear and to read from you. The hashtag of the day, and of course, the hashtags of the week are hashtag TransportWeek21. It's already a lot online, as I could read this morning on Twitter. So thanks again for sharing already. And the second hashtag is We Change Transport. So 2 hashtags, hashtag TransportWeek21 and hashtag We Change Transport. That being said, I'd love to start with you in our day in a full week of very interesting debates, of very inspiring keynotes, in the space of really gathering together, discussing transport and climate change in these unprecedented times, in the times of a pandemic. And I'd like to start with a welcome speech by the Federal Minister for Environment, Nature, Conservation and Nuclear Safety. Please welcome, digitally of course, Svenja Schulze.
Participants, ministry representatives, colleagues, welcome to the 4th Transport and Climate Change Week. In years past, you met here in Berlin to work together in solutions for transforming the transport sector. Transport Week has become an established platform promoting international exchange. Learning from each other is important because the global climate crisis can only be resolved cooperatively as an international community together with all stakeholders. The transformation of the transport sector is vital in this context. Today, transport is responsible for 1/4 of the global energy-related greenhouse gas emissions. In 40% of countries around the world, transport is the sector with the highest energy consumption. In the majority of the remaining countries, transport ranks second. And this is why swift decarbonization of the transport sector is crucial for achieving international climate targets. With the Climate Change Act, the German government set binding emission reduction targets for each economic sector in 2019, for energy, buildings, agriculture, and also for transport. We have just made these targets more stringent, also for the transport sector. Our Constitutional Court has issued a landmark ruling on this matter. Numerous measures have been set in motion to transform the transport sector in a climate-friendly way. For example, the German government supports electric mobility with incentive systems, including an environmental bonus. We support the purchase of electric buses for local public transport. We also support the production and use of sustainable electricity-based fuel for aviation and shipping. Under the International Climate Initiative, the Environment Ministry funds transport-related projects in other regions with around 60 million euros annually. For example, in Colombia, a project with the local government improved the framework conditions for using e-buses and local public transport. Our partners in Thailand are setting up a clean mobility program by introducing a city toll system and a national fund for sustainable transport. One part of the program is the electrification of public transport. This improves air quality. Local particulate matter emissions will be reduced by up to 36% per year. Last year, in Germany and worldwide, recovery packages were put together to help people and the economy during the coronavirus crisis. Happily, many of these programs have a future-proof, climate-friendly and sustainable recovery for the economy and society at their foundations. This window of opportunity should also be used for transforming transport. The tagline of this year's Transport and Climate Change Week, Smart and Green Recovery in the Transport Sector, is directly linked to the recovery. I hope you all gain fresh inspiration here for your work together. Let's continue the dialogue.
Thank you, dear Minister. Let's continue the dialogue. That is, also, of course, also our motto of the day and of the week. And I'd like to continue now our debate and our dialogue with our first live guest in the stream. With me is Tanja Gönner, Chair of Management Board of the GIZ. Good morning, Ms. Gönner.
Good morning, Ms. Gallen.
Good morning. I hope you are well wherever you are joining us today. So thanks again for joining the Transport Week today. And of course, there are more than 1,000 participants. I just got the numbers, more than 1,000 participants listening right now. From your perspective, what would you like to tell our guests?
Well, thank you so much, and it's great to hear this huge number of participants. I'm very happy to hear that, and I would like to start, dear Ms. Gallus, dear Mr. Bongardt, dear partners and colleagues, dear Ms. Schulze, dear participants. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all today to the 4th edition of the Transport and Climate Change Week in Berlin, this time virtually. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the event had to be hybrid, but I must admit that I would much rather welcome you all in Berlin in person. On the other hand, I am excited to experience this conference in this new innovative format where we are all digitally connected across 20 countries around the world. We are grateful that the Ministry of Environment is funding this week full of trainings and workshops. The support through the International Climate Initiative for Transport is encouraging. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizational team for all their efforts to make this event possible, and you, dear participants, for your understanding and support. And we have a lot of partners on board, like, for example, the Umweltbundesamt, where we later hear President Dirk Messner giving the keynote speech. Without these partner organizations and their tremendous efforts, the event would not be possible. For the next few days, I wish you a successful event with plenty of inspirational discussions, fruitful exchange, and instructive workshops. I hope you can take a lot away. To kick off the event today, we have a very interesting and enlightening program ahead of us, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So I'll stop here and hand back the virtual microphone to you, Ms. Gallus.
Thank you, Ms. Gönner. So let's get a little bit more personal. I mean, from a scale from 1, not very much, to 10, very much, how much do you miss personally attending live events in these times?
Well, not easy to answer that question. As I mentioned before, I would, of course, prefer to welcome and talk to all of you in person. The last year has been full of video conferences and online meetings. It is just not the same to communicate with people via MS Teams. But on the other hand, we learned a lot about how to use it. And we can acknowledge that these virtual formats often offer a way to host international conferences of this magnitude without pouring vast amounts of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere from our flights around the globe. And to be honest, much more people could participate than being in person in Berlin and saying both. So I'm between 6 and 8. Normally, I like to be with the people in person, but I see also the great opportunities that virtual formats have for participation. It's much more inclusive, and because of this, it's in between. As I mentioned, between 6 and 8, I will say I would have liked in person, but it's fine for me in that way if much more people can participate.
Ms. Gönner, you are now chair of the management board at the GIZ. When we look back into your CV 10 years ago, you have been the Minister for Environment and Transport of the German federal state Baden-Württemberg. So greetings go out to the southern state Baden-Württemberg. When you compare now the policy making from today to back then, would you say climate is more of a priority within the transport policies now than it used to be 10 years ago? And of course, even the question, was climate even put into consideration 10 years ago?
Well, also not so easy. I think the transport sector has a long tradition of actions that focus on environmental improvement. The focus used to be more on local problems like urban air pollution or traffic noise. These were driving forces. For much more than a decade, we know that solutions are, for example, cleaner fuels and vehicles, public transport, walking and cycling, and the reduction of transport demand. On the other side, it was quite interesting bringing both ministries together 10 years ago, and it was before before 2005. It was the same in Baden-Württemberg. It was clear that there were some things you have to think together in environment and transport. And yes, there were, we discussed a lot. At that time, we discussed for ourselves about the transport sector as an important sector for CO2 emissions, be it on flight or cars issues. We discussed at that time about hydrogen too. We discussed about e-vehicles, but we were not as far in the techniques as we are now. So that there things have changed. And now the need to reduce CO2 has become a much stronger policy driver also for the transport sector. It has gained greater significance in the decision making of our transport policy makers. This has to do with an increased political pressure from society and with the fact that Germany's climate targets are getting more ambitious. We have the new narrative now called the Verkehrswende, which basically implies a great transformation of transport systems towards zero carbon. In addition, I would say that the digitization offers the transport sector opportunities to become more efficient that simply weren't available 10 years ago. For example, traveling multimodal has become so much easier with smartphone apps. Electric vehicles were a distant possibility, but not something you would ever see on German roads. So new technologies have rapidly expanded our toolbox of sustainable transport and policy actions. We discussed 10 years ago, we discussed about the new technologies, but we were not able to, they weren't at the large scale as they are now. So this is, I think, a little bit the difference between 10 years ago and now. And last but not least, I observed that the freight transport sector is finally getting into the radar of climate policy. This is good because the footprint of this transport subsector has been overlooked for too long.
Thank you so much for actually explaining a little bit the journey, of course, that is also held within the scene from debating and discussing, really coming into action. Now, Ms. Gönner, as a chairperson of an international active development organization, of course, working together with very different local partners across the globe, across the world, in different regions, but of course in different perspectives and in different contexts. Where do you see the role of transport and climate change? Where will it be playing a bigger international role within the international cooperation? And of course, can we hope that the GIZ is also shifting a priority towards that topic of coming together, the transport and the climate change? I know we do have to tackle a lot of different topics right now concerning the pandemic times with global health and so on, but where do you see the focus and the priority of the topic of today and of course of our week, transport and climate change, within the international and the German development cooperation?
Well, I think not only for us in Germany, but also for the partner countries of German development cooperation, climate change is a key issue. With the Paris Agreement, we all need to transition to emission neutral and climate friendly development in many sectors. That is why Germany has made climate change mitigation and adaptation a priority area of its development cooperation. From our cooperation with partners around the world, we understand that development and transport are closely linked. Sound transport infrastructure and efficient, affordable mobility services are key drivers for economic prosperity, for job creation and inclusive growth. Seamless transport options across borders are a prerequisite for effective international cooperation, but also for intercultural dialogue. Despite digital technologies, intercultural exchange works best when you can physically, we had it before, travel to other countries from time to time by plane, ship, train, or car. And we missed this during the pandemic, so we see how much we need that. As a sustainable solution, we need to work towards building transport systems that support economic growth and international cooperation, but at the same time do not cause further harm to our planet. For us as GIZ, climate change is a top priority. In our view, the transport sector is one of the most important sectors to tackle this challenge, especially because it can and should play a fundamental role in reducing emission. It is rapidly growing with ever increased greenhouse gas emission in comparison with other sectors, many of which are witnessed either a decrease or stabilization in emissions level. For that reason, at GIZ, we have stepped up our portfolio of climate and sustainability focused transport projects. As of now, we are active in more than 30 countries on behalf of the German Federal Environment Ministry, the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation, the European Commission and other donors, implementing transport projects that work towards a greener future. I am optimistic that even more projects will follow. The push for a Verkehrswende, as I mentioned before, that means transport transition, is growing here in Germany, fueled by the need for a green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. I am sure that we can take a pioneer role here, encouraging our partners around the world to set similar priorities. And I think the key factor is a green recovery after COVID-19 pandemic. It is in the European Union, it is in Germany, and I think it's also key for our partner countries. The coronavirus pandemic will have an ongoing influence on the future and priorities of our transport projects. In Germany, the strength of our transport and logistic sector served as a reminder of the huge importance of robust infrastructure. Throughout the pandemic and ongoing, our logistics sector has ensured the transport and trade of medical goods and service, food, and other vital resources. As a result, I think logistics, trade, and cooperation will play an increasing role in further transport projects of GIZ. To summarize, it is crucial that we join forces on a global level to address challenges in transport, particularly in sectors such as aviation and freight, which have a huge impact on all of us. We are here today to find out more about the measures other countries are putting in place to ensure sustainable and robust infrastructure development, particularly as we move towards a recovery from the pandemic.
Thank you, Tanja, Gönner, for these outlines, and of course for the importance of also connecting the dots within a portfolio that has this impact as it has from the GIZ. So thanks again for these outlines. Last question, Ms. Gönner. When you look ahead 5 days, I mean, we just started our Transport Week, Transport and Climate Change Week, but looking ahead onto Friday, what is your expectation? What would be a good result that you would like to see, of course, and to hear about?
Well, for me, a successful result would be to have all the participants leaving the conference full of new insights, knowledge, inspiring ideas and visions, sparked by exchange with experts from all over the world. Have different perspectives, because it was very fruitful. If people take new knowledge or ideas away from the Transport Week, I think that would make it a success. This is the first step to come up with new, innovative, sustainable transport projects and approaches for increasing the effectiveness of our work and our impact. It is a chance to strengthen our cooperation as a transport community, collectively fighting for a transformative mobility solution. Furthermore, I hope that we will also be able to reach people who are new to the transport sector and might not yet be familiar with the huge potential it offers in the intersection with climate change. But after that week, they feel fine in the community and they feel well informed and are very happy to be part of this community.
Absolutely, I agree. And every newbie is very welcome in the transport family. So thank you very much, Tanja Gönner, for your outlines. Thank you for joining us, the Chair of Management Board of the GIZ, and greetings to you. Thank you
so much.
We are continuing into our first day of the Transport and Climate Change Week. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you on board. So thanks for joining us virtually, of course. We would have loved, of course, to have you in person in a conference hall. We do live in these unprecedented times of a pandemic, so we decided now to have a virtual program that is fruitful, that is inspiring, and that is filled with very inspirational speakers. And I'd like to have now the Program Director, Transport and Climate Change of the GIZ, Daniel Bongardt, with me in the studio, because he knows all about the program and what we look ahead. Daniel, it's up to you. What do we look into in our next few days?
Thank you, Kati, for the nice welcome, and I'm very happy, and I really would like to welcome all of you who are in basically all over the world. Maybe this morning colleagues from Latin America are still in bed, but so in general, I think so this is a great event. And you see, I would love to have you all here in Berlin. We are here in Berlin today, and I think it would be really great if, as 13 months ago, you have been here and you have worked with us on the transport and climate change together. Now we have many more participants, and I think Tanja Gönner already mentioned it, that it's a great opportunity to welcome many, many more people. In fact, we have more than 900 people registered already, And I think more to come, so I please encourage you to tell your colleagues, tune in this week, and I'm sure we get the 1,000. It's more than 20 countries, and in these 20 countries, I think it's a variety of many, many people, and I especially would like to welcome our partners from the Ministry of Transport, Ministries of Environment, and all the experts that we are working on a day-to-day basis with. The week is tremendous. It's more than 60 sessions. Colleagues all over the world have jointly put together a huge program, and we have more than 200 speakers. So this is really encouraging. It's maybe, I would say, the largest transport event as GIZ we have ever had. And so in that regard, it's really inspiring. It's 5 days full of knowledge. And if you look at this program, today is a conference day with inspiring talks. And then the next 3 days, we have workshops. And we have structured them, again, through avoid transport demand, shift to other modes, and then improve the technology, for example, electric mobility or other alternative fuels. And then, last but not least, we have our Mobilize Your City Global Forum, where we work with our partner cities on the various approaches to go for urban mobility policies in the world. And we work across 13 time zones. And so in these 13 time zones, I think we really start very, very early in the morning here in Berlin, early morning in Asia, and then we end late at night in Latin America, and that's inspiring. This only is possible through many, many partners, and we have more than 30 partner organizations. And you see here the different logos and everybody who contributed to this. So without you, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you very much for helping us putting this program together. Last but not least, I would like to, of course, thank the Federal Ministry of Environment for making this event possible and for sponsoring the Transport and Climate Change Week. I think it's a great privilege to work together with you. And I only have to encourage you now to actively participate in polls, go to the wall of ideas, and put in your input onto our virtual platform. Today we have an inspiring program. We have a keynote by Professor Messner from the German Environmental Protection Agency. Before that, we go around the world and look who's around here. Then we have a panel discussion with high-level representatives from different countries. And last but not least, we are launching a couple of important reports. And I'm looking forward very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Wishing you a good day.
Thank you. I got goosebumps, telling us about all these different sessions, more than, 200 speakers, more than 60 sessions. So we are looking into a very, very inspiring week. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Kati.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, of course you are, as Daniel just mentioned, kindly invited to be engaged on the platform. We do have, as Daniel just mentioned, several possibilities for you to be engaged. We do have a chat, we have a wall of ideas, we have a matchmaking area, we have a virtual fair. So use it, use the time, and of course use the possibility to network together and to debate. I'd just like to head over to our graphic recorder, dear Anne. She is actually making the magic, and she is composing a piece of art, graphic recording, everything what we are going to discuss. I mean, you're gonna have here and there a little glimpse to her artwork to see, as also Daniel mentioned, that we are over the world in different time zones, more than 13 different time zones, and everything that is going to be discussed here in the conference will be then shown on this beautiful infographic by Anne. So thanks, Anne, to have you on board. I wave you from the stage and I see you later on. So thanks again, of course, for joining us today. Great. Ladies and gentlemen, as Daniel Bongardt also mentioned with an outlook of the day, we are kind of traveling, of course, through different time zones, traveling through different perspectives, and we are coming now to our first international section, the Global World Café, which is really a journey around the world to get insights of our topic of today from different, as I mentioned, perspectives, backgrounds, regions, maybe also different portfolios. And our spotlight now, as we are here live streaming from the Global Hub in Berlin, we are streaming now into the world to different hubs. From Berlin now, as I mentioned, towards the national conference hubs in Asia, in Africa and Europe. And later, when we come closer to our afternoon in the European time, we also talk, of course, with the colleagues in Latin America, but they are still asleep, so we will not wake them up. We're going to focus now a little bit eastwards. As you mentioned, or as you maybe just heard, I mean, the wall of idea is, just to give you a glimpse on that as well, if you have the feeling along the way, oh man, we missed something on the graphic recording, just put it onto the wall of ideas. So this is really your board to actually send us your ideas, what needs to be discussed, what are your thoughts, your perspectives, and of course, what is your idea, what needs to be shown on the graphic recording. We also, of course, watch the social media channels, so please use the hashtag TransportWeek21 and WeChangeTransport. All right, coming now into our World Café, so to say, I'd like to ask a first question to the first panel guest, or the first international guest, because we are focusing now on the question what really is a hot topic in transport and mobility in different countries, in your country specifically, and how do you, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests from the Café, tackle the COVID impact. And I'd like to introduce you first to all the panel speakers we do have. From Indonesia, we have Pak Kris Kuntadi, a warm welcome to you, Senior Advisor of Minister of the Transport at the Ministry of Transportation in the Republic Indonesia. We do have from the Philippines, Anne Patricia Mariano. She's an advisor for transport at the GIZ. Great to see you, ladies and gentlemen. And last but not least in this first round, from India, Dr. Indradip Mitra, team leader concerning e-mobility at the Indo-German Energy Program at the GIZ. What a beautiful round. Nice to see you. As I said, I would have loved to see you on stage, but nevertheless, virtual is better than nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, concerning the question, what is a hot topic in transport and mobility in your country, and how do you tackle now the COVID impact? I'd like to start with our guest from Indonesia. Pak Kris Kuntadi, how would you answer my question?
Okay, thank you. You can very good in speaking. Pak Kris Kuntadi, thank you. Actually, the hot issue in Indonesia now is like maybe in other countries that transportation dealing with COVID. Yeah, because the transportation actually is not only used at present, but must be sustained in the future for the sustainable development. So for the sustainable development in Indonesia, it includes the main is about safety. Yeah. Even in during the COVID era, we have to make the safety is number one. And then the second is also about security, and security especially for this era is about the COVID. And then affordable fares, high accessibility, integrated, and also low pollution. This is what we want to have in the this area. And during the COVID, we have two spirited between mass transportation for people and also for the freight transport. Especially for the transportation for people, we make very high health limitation, because for almost all the kind of, or almost the mode, we maximize 55%. Except for the airline, we could until 100%, because for the domestic transport airline, is only the maximum is 4 hours, so we can give until 100%, but with very tight health protocol. For every passengers and every drivers, every pilot, they have to have the certificate of anti-COVID. Yeah. It's issued by the doctor, issued by the authority for the health terminal. So all people, if they want to go, they have to have a health certificate, especially anti-COVID. Yeah. If people that suffer COVID or high temperature, yeah, they have to postpone their journey. This is for the mass transportation, especially for people. But we have the problem for the local transport, especially in the train. Yeah. We have commuter line that the capacity is, we try to maximize until 90%, but because the capacity is still low, so sometimes the people will just go to the train, the commuter line, more than 100%. Even we try to minimize in the in the gate. Yeah. And then for the freight transport itself, like for example for truck, yeah. For truck is maximum is only 2%, driver and assistant driver. And for the transportation for others, it's just like no, because no issued about freight transport for COVID.
Chris,
but for especially, sorry.
Thank you so much, Chris. With a little look on my time here, the time is running. I need to stop you here, unfortunately, but thank you so much for actually pointing out that it's really about capacity development on a local scale, and for your insights. Thank you so much, and greetings to Indonesia. I just want to hop on now to the Philippines. Dear Ann, maybe you can give us also a glimpse, of course, what are your hot topics from your perspective in your portfolio right now concerning transport and mobility, and how do you tackle the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. Thank you. So in the Philippines, I guess one of the three big changes in our transport, in our urban transport, would be bike lanes. So there's a lot more bike lanes now. Well, on the national and the local level both, we see a lot of interest in bike lanes from people. We see cities preparing their own bike lanes. We see the national government allocating ₱1 billion, an unprecedented amount, just for the development of bike lanes. So that's definitely a silver lining that came out because of this pandemic. The other thing that we've seen locally is that because there was a lack of public transport supply, especially at the start of the pandemic when the health guidelines on physical distancing were being clarified, and there was just no public transport supply. It actually helped the government open up into service contracting, which has been a plan of the department for years now, but it's just been quite hard to implement. So the pandemic, again, gave an opportunity to pilot this. So they got to pilot a direct contracting scheme where drivers are paid for kilometers to run versus the old system where they were paid on a commission per passenger, which led to a lot of issues, of course. The other thing that they got to pilot was they managed to do a median bus lane on EDSA, the busiest road in Metro Manila. So that's been running, well, of course, the movement of the vehicle there is a lot more smoother than when it was on the outermost lane. I think the last thing that we noticed change in this pandemic is the increase in online shopping. And that's an area for sustainable freight to come in, as Ms. Tanja Gönner said earlier. Yeah, that's it from the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for pointing out. Thank you. And last but definitely not least in our round, we're gonna travel now to India, to Dr. Indradeep Mitra. How would you actually describe your hot topics when we debate about transport and climate change? And of course, how do you tackle the COVID-19 impact that it has on transport?
Thank you, and a very good afternoon from New Delhi, India. See, for the hot topic, there are obviously a few hot topics at the moment. Just before COVID times, see, 2019, India used to be the 5th largest automobile market in the world. And of course, after the COVID now, under the influence of the pandemic, there were lots of negative effects in that. Nevertheless, India was also the sixth largest or sixth most polluted in the list of pollution globally, and therefore there is a focus on the pollution abatement, particularly transport and vehicular pollution, inclusive in that. And India has a focus on fuel efficiency in terms of automobile. So at the moment, Bharat Stage 6 or BS6, which is almost equal to European Euro 6 standard of 2015. That is one focus. On the other hand, there is another parallel focus, which is both attracting the pollution aspect as well as dependency on the petroleum products, which is electric mobility. So India has put a lot of effort and schemes and a lot of drives going on in electric mobility promotion as well. So these two, I would claim, are the key topics at the moment. On your question about how the tackling taking place on the COVID-related impacts, there were a lot of social distancing. Of course, the public mood is not to use public transport. They are now scared about pandemic, and mostly the focus, automatic psychology of the people are focusing more into private transport, which is not really that great in the idea of sustainable mobility. So a lot of effort is being driven and given from the government for social distancing and talking about increase the frequency of the public transport system. And also, since few months, there were very stringent action. It has also a direct effect on the freight transport as well, also aviation also. If you know that the aviation is also very profound in India at the moment. So these are all, I can say, some of the key important points.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this first round of a Global Café. And of course, dear Indradeep in India, greetings, and I hope you stay safe and healthy as well, especially in these times when we look into the news. So greetings to all of you, of course, and thanks for joining us today on our virtual conference. Let's go on with our journey into our second round, so to say. And of course, I do have a question for the next guest as well, coming up in a moment. We're going to head over to Thailand, to the Office of Transport and Traffic Policy and Planning, Chief of the Sustainable Transport Promotion Group under the Bureau of the Safety Planning. With us is today Kun Chutinthorn Mangkong. A warm welcome to you in Thailand. And I hope you can see me well.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I come back to you in a second. We also have from Serbia, Ognjen Petar Todorovic, the head of the Department for Urban Mobility in the city of Belgrade in Serbia, for this second round in our Global Café. And last but not least, we are also looking into Ukraine. There we have our mobility expert, Pavlo Sirovatka. So I do have now guests from Thailand, from Serbia and Ukraine concerning our second question of our global journey to start into our Transport Week. What is really a hot topic when we debate about mobility and transport in the countries, and what are solutions for the trend of digitalization? And I'd like to head over this question firstly to the colleague in Thailand, to Kun Chutinthorn Mangkong. How would you answer that question? Where are the hot topics, and how would you see, or where do you see solutions for transport in the trend of digitalization?
Okay, Sudhika. Thank you very much for your question. I think today is very nice to meet you all today. For the hot topic in transportation in Thailand, I think Thailand would be similar to many countries, to many other countries that focus on promoting the use of electric vehicle and development of rail system. Thailand is now forming EV roadmap for until 2035. The EV share in automobile manufacture is expected to be 50% by 2035. In order to reach that target, the Thai government plans to support the nationwide the setup of charging infrastructure all over the country. And we will revision of the excise tax structure to lower the tax rate for EV. And for the rail system development, Thailand rail system development is currently undergoing a massive expansion, including urban, intercity, and cross-border connectivities. According to the trend of digitalization, Thailand marched toward its goal to sustainable development under the Thailand 4.0 models. The Ministry of Transport has placed a priority on developing intelligent transport systems, along with the more flexible, mobile, and effective level of connectivity. And recently, we have laid the application that we call Nam Thang in Thailand. This application has been launched that applying the application for traveling by various forms of public transportation, such as the train, buses, passenger van, boats, ferry, minibus within Bangkok, and in others connecting the city nearby the Bangkok. These applications support the connection of all public transport systems. This application could be helped to increase efficiency in planning travel connectivities and currently appropriate and reduce the time and cost in traveling in Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bangkok, and greetings, of course, to Thailand. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and thanks for joining us in our Transport and Climate Change Week. So thanks again for outlining your hot topics right now. Of course, from Thailand now to Serbia, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite a journey. Now with us is Onjan Petar Todorovic, Head of Department for Urban Mobility in the city of Belgrade in Serbia. Greetings to you as well. What are your hot topics right now, and how do you tackle, of course, also the solutions within the trend of digitalization?
Hello everyone, greetings from Belgrade. First of all, I wanted to tell that Belgrade is a part of the hub of Southeast Europe for this event, which also includes other capitals for the region. About hot topics in transport in Serbia, of course, there is a lot of infrastructure projects in Serbia, such as highways and construction of rails, but I will focus my answer for the Belgrade. Last year, the city of Belgrade adopted Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, and Belgrade SAMP was a finalist for SAMP Award. In accordance with it, we have continued expanding our cycling infrastructure and improving and expand pedestrian zones. We are trying to promote active mode of transportation for all citizens. Of course, the biggest project in Belgrade is start of metro construction. We are now in final phase of planning, and I expect that we will start building first metro line in Belgrade very soon. I will be very brief, so I will just tell you about two more projects that are active in Belgrade. One of them is automatic vehicle access regulation in central zone, and other is increasing number of e-buses in public transportation, because we are trying to be more green in public transportation.
Thank you so much, Peter. And from Serbia, we are heading now to Ukraine. Pavlo Sirvatka is with us, mobility expert. As a mobility expert, how would you answer my question concerning the hot topics, of course, in Ukraine when we talk about transport and climate change within the field also, of course, of digitalization?
Well, first, the main topic, except of COVID, which everybody told in first session before, it's increased accessibility of private transport. It's not only cars, it includes e-scooters, it includes a lot of investments which country made to improve road conditions between cities, but still state invest much less to railway, which is also not in the perfect condition. And there are some investments to airports. So it means that our taxpayers' money is spent on travel by car, which is in rural areas it's important, but it's not maybe the best solution for everywhere. And what is to be done is just to continue what everybody is doing. It's about increasing of efficiency, speed of public transport, increase safety, increase possibilities for cycling. That's not something that changed because of COVID or other aspects. It's just something what still we need to do, maybe because of COVID even more need. Regarding digital solutions, we have public transport data. We try to establish a bit more data-driven approaches to decisions made by, at least on city level, if not on all what happens in Ukraine. And we have already data on public transport shared to all users and all potential software developers who could perform some applications which would be more convenient to users than one application to be developed by city or government. And I hope sooner than later we would integrate also rental applications like e-scooters, bike sharings into all this data ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pablo. And thanks, of course, for the second round within our Global World Café. Thanks again to Kun Chichunthorn Mangkong in Thailand. Thank you so much. And of course, from Serbia, Onyen Petar Todorovic, and from Ukraine, Pablo Sirvatka. Thank you. Heading into our next round, into the third round, and of course also with the question, what is really a hot topic right now within transport and mobility in the following countries? We go to Vietnam, Georgia, and Kenya in a second. And in Vietnam, I warmly welcome now Mr. Duong, Director General at the Department of Environment in the Ministry of Transport. A warm welcome to you. And in Georgia, I warmly welcome Maya Tsavarece, Head of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. Also, greetings to you in Georgia. And last but not least, from Kenya, so this is a similar time zone right now, Esther Gagancha, Principal Economist in the State Department of the Transport in Kenya. Again, I do have 3 virtual guests. Thank you everybody for joining us today, and a warm welcome to all of you. I'd like to start with Mr. Duong, Director General at the Department of Environment in the Ministry of Transport. Tell us a little bit, what are currently the hot topics when we talk about transport and mobility in your country, in Vietnam, and of course also the big question with a short answer, if it's possible. How do you tackle the climate crisis in that field?
Thank you very much, the MC, facilitator for this event today. Similar to other colleagues, you know that COVID-19 pandemic have had impacts on the transport and mobility sector in Vietnam because the need for traveling has been decreased because of social distancing time and policies. However, when we look at the impacts, long-term impacts of transport on environment, Vietnam has 3 main issues. First, the key main means of transport in Vietnam are still private means, including scooters or two-wheelers and cars. And in terms of cargo transportation, road transportation is still the main means of transportation, and motorized vehicles are mainly using fossil fuel. Therefore, the transport sector have had a lot of impacts on the air quality in big cities, especially in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City of Vietnam. And we emit around 10% of GHG emission in the total GHG emission of Vietnam. In terms of tackle the climate crisis and GHG emission, basing on the updated NDC of Vietnam, the transport sector of Vietnam will take 4 measures in the coming time to reduce GHG emission. First, we will shift from private means of transport to public means of transport. And second, for cargo transport, we will shift from road transport to railway transport and waterway along coastal areas. And thirdly, we will enhance the energy efficiency and saving of means of transport. And fourthly, shifting from fossil fuel to biofuel and renewable energy. That's all for Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duong, and greetings, of course, to Vietnam. Heading over now to Georgia. Dear Maya, how would you actually answer my question? What are hot topics right now in your countries when we talk about transport and climate change? And of course, how do you tackle the climate change?
First of all, let me thank you for the invitation. It's really my deep pleasure to greet the transport and climate change community from Georgia. And I'm happy that my country is a part of this global event that facilitates the knowledge and experience sharing among the countries. The mobility is one of the essential aspects that affect climate change, air quality, economy, and the quality of life of our citizens. The Georgian transport use of private cars for individual transport, which is directly linked to the increase of the greenhouse gas emissions. Even though there are some positive changes as well. In reaching the sustainability, we're developing the road infrastructure, renewing the bus fleet, and upgrading the public transport system, building the cycling infrastructure, for example, also introducing the bus rapid transport, transit and intelligent transport systems. The sector still remains sensitive to climate change as it has the biggest share of the national Tackling the climate change and transport-related challenges in Georgia is one of the priorities for the government of Georgia. In April this year, Georgia has approved its updated NDC and 2030 Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan, which identifies the transport sector as the key in reducing the national greenhouse gas emissions and sets the decarbonization goals and concrete measures for the transport sector. Particularly, we are committed to reduce emissions to 15% by 2030. And the measures that we identify are the increasing the share of the technically sound and low-emission private vehicles, reducing the demand on fossil fuels and encouraging the use of biofuels, encouraging the use of public transport and also non-motorized transport, and etc. This particular goal, these goals also are followed by concrete measures, of course, in the strategy and the action plan. So we fully recognize the importance of the topic, and we work hard to meet our goals and to protect the climate and develop the transport sector in a sustainable way.
Thank you very much, Maya. Thanks for joining us. And last but definitely not least in our round, I head over now to an expert in Kenya. Esther Gagancha is with us, from the principal economist in the State Department of Transport in Kenya. It's great to have you with us, Esther. Thanks for joining us all the way. You know, it's a global cafe, so it's a pleasure to have you on board in this round. Can you tell us a little bit more from the Kenyan perspective? What are the hot topics when we debate about transport and mobility in your country? And of course, also combining my question with an answer of how to actually tackle the climate crisis, which is a big task in today's times.
Thank you. The hot topic in Kenya is with regard to provision of low carbon efficient transportation system. And with regard to climate change, we are prioritizing the mitigation action of increasing the uptake of e-mobility towards achieving the revised NDC ambition of reducing the emissions by 32% and for transport sector 8%. And with this regard, we are scanning and reviewing the regulatory framework so that we may have enabling policy environment to increase the uptake and to also regulate the industry at large. We have requested for further incentives for the industry in the meantime. And in the long term, we are doing a policy, a national electric mobility policy that will provide even an implementation framework and strategy going forward. And also we are looking forward to having a very tight coordination for the electric mobility functions with regard to all the players, all the stakeholders from all over, all walks of life, development partners, private investors, what we call small and medium-term enterprises, the Juakari sector, to ensure that all people are coherently implementing electric mobility from a coordinated framework. So that and much more is what we are now implementing with regard to increasing the ambition for the reduction of GHGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Esther, for joining us and for being on point with your 2 minutes of a little introduction into the hot topics. So thanks everybody to this round. Thank you so much, Mr. Duong in Vietnam. A warm greeting to you. Georgia Maya Tsavaraj was joining us. And last but not least from Kenya, Esther Gagansha. Thank you very much for this round, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, for everybody involved as well. Thank you, everybody, for actually participating also in the chat and, of course, in the social media channels. I do read now and there when I have my off times in the social media channels from you. So thanks again for being actively engaged. And I head over to Tanja again, our graphic recorder, having a look into the global perspective. And, of course, more and more countries are participating now, actively participating in the Café round. We couldn't have shown every group of the countries, so we were focusing on just a few. Please excuse us, but the time is running, and this is just a beautiful glimpse now into our graphic recorders at, showing what we were just discussing. If you have add-on information, just put them and post them, of course, in our wall of ideas.